Welcome to Tidbit Talkin. Have some ideas about a fictional thing, each one featuring different levels of seriousness. Spoilers, here we go. The Emperor has to call underworld-dwelling creatures to do his bidding because natural realm ones typically don't care for much violence other than that which involves eating hoopla. These guys are recruiting those with impressive physical potential for their ranks and just chose Leon out of this group because he was already wearing similar clothing. They must have limited slots available or something because their boss is rather cheap. What with mostly relying on free labor from crazy hell beasts and all, most mystical teachers are near the healing sigil so rookies can best be trained properly and grow sufficiently as warriors. Basically, experienced rebels are required to treat their own wounds with more traditional medicine because it is expected that they shoulder the burden of newer ones until they can fight just as well and such. Stranded home booze seller's okay with leaving after other freedom fighters show up because he doesn't care if drunken soldiers trash the place once that wounded gentleman's evacuated, or otherwise no longer back there. That kid asks if mithril tastes good because he understands how growing folks need plenty of iron and thus thinks all other microscopic metals must be consumed for good health as well. A normal boat trip's so cheap because the high volume of people fleeing from Imperial attacks means profit is quite easily achieved at low margins. Sid likes to fly his airship like that whenever he spots waterlogged sailors just to show off and/or advertise. Only his second-in-command personal assistant provides different and useful information because the rest of these trainees aren't allowed to talk with customers freely yet. Except for one sort of advertising line kind of deal. In this case, it's all to make sure nobody asks to reach fast and get his precious vehicle blown out of the sky. If everybody's allowed to fully customer interact, then there's a much higher chance at somebody getting persuaded into offering that particular trip. Especially if their supervisor can't keep track of who's sober or not. Speaking of which, he chose the usually least drunk of them all as his direct helper. The Empire mines their Sorcery Supreme silver near their precious Battling Sky Galleon construction site to make sure those guarding it are always optimally equipped, also so it can get adequately reinforced with said super steel stuff. Those knights only carry garlic because their primary purpose in this region is to hunt undead foes. The Palamesian Plate Pusher hates them extra because they're the few folks from that damn dimension who didn't want to follow his lead and just sneakily escaped alongside those others he liberated. Oh, and they don't drop money because the ultra-frugal evil army pays them in staying alive privileges. Its native royal folk fled from Kashuan Keep via Chocobo. These feeling-evoking empty rooms are actually where prisoner workers are forced to sleep/eat after hauling mithril to their current overlords. This floor transition space in particular is where they did all that while still mining. The hideout was likely fine because it was built with a certain frequently mentioned ultimate ore back when such stuff was commonly used. Most of the people in Paloom were able to safely take shelter from the Dreadnought's attack because they have ample experience with these things from sailing during bad storms. Said Sinister Sky Soarer's launch pad's neighboring community was spared just in case more forced labor is ever needed for maintenance and repairs. Possibly even just cleaning, really. Guy speaks beaver because he used to train by cutting and lifting logs, and hanging out with other creatures who love lumber made him pick up on some things. An adamantoise hangs out near this bell because the thing's connection to that semi-mythical sunfire grants it enough heat to help Sir Deadly Turtle's cold-blooded self survive quite easily. Morgan built that booby trap by using tools which helped in the construction of his army's terrifying flagship. Citizens can't be brought back to life by sanctuaries and other runic malarkey unless they're needed to help save this world at the exact moment their revival's requested. There's likely a hole in the roof that helps concentrate light through some sort of mystical lens which will eventually generate a new flame. Batty Big Bro's current panic caused his affected voice to slip, which resulted in Maria contemplating who he is. It's still a little different though, because of the helmet and everything. Of course, immense worry over his daughter is what caused the king's health to fail further. Especially because he realized on some level that it wasn't really Hilda who got rescued. The most disheartening part was his assumption that she had already perished herself. Hence Gordon getting that promotion and not Daddy's little girl. Layla threatened every normal sailor in town to not take tourists to any different locations so she could swindle ambush them. Those Helldivers must have been trained by extra enraged Emperor and sent to scour the world in an attempt at vengeance mission what have you after their dreadful airship home got destroyed. That one boss bighorn called the other four with its roar. King Linguist realized the Chimeras were after the egg because he speaks the language of each contained animal head. The variable price of an inn based on damage taken is representative of how long you'll be resting in a room. News of that princess tournament leaked right when Contentment-crushing Conqueror planned for the Lamia to kill Furion. It was all supposed to be an opposition soul-destroying, rub salt in the wound kind of deal. Monsters near Palamesia are extra freaky because they're closest to the residual energy of that original hell portal their arguably human tamers summoned them from. Behemoth doesn't drop any gil because of course the Emperor didn't plan for any actual prizes with its trap. They decide to attack now, not only because maybe Mr. and Mrs. Leader returned, but also since they now have extra troops with the pirates joining up. There are vile beasts in the streets of Flynn because its sociopathic occupiers simply don't feel like fending them off for visitors' sakes. Especially because they're on the same side. Paul most likely was pivotal in sneaking everybody out during the attack on this place at the beginning. The presence of that mask and worry over Ultima is why this locale needed conquering in the first place. Also, this is why many monsters are lurking in chests. They were looking for it and accidentally got shut in. The rather convoluted system to unseal that supposedly peerless pest punisher seems to be designed around giving folks plenty of time to think over whether or not they should really be doing this. A town is safe inside Leviathan's stomach because regular creatures aren't smart enough to avoid concentrated digestive acid spots. A new crystal rod must be formed every time the two mystical facial coverings are placed on those statues. Anyway, getting swallowed by Jolly Blue Water Snake is supposed to test one's mettle to see if they're capable of going into hell itself in order to vanquish a demon army with Ultima. It's all a preparing for the worst kind of thing. The various antagonistic animals in this tower test very well could have been captured/trained by being threatened with that mystical might which drove back their kin. Minwu must have spent all his time waiting for Team Super Orphan preparing to use that self-sacrificing sacred stream shot. Those stat-increasing, implicitly elemental crystals could very well be a last-ditch effort to give folks a chance at winning, other than resorting to the apparently top-tier magic. The Cyclone may very well be a counter-ultimate spell developed over millennia by Eternal Torment Society. Paul hit a blood sword because its overpoweredness is what he most feared the Empire wielding. Guy is outside dancing with the beavers. Not only did Sid not have the strength left to fly his airship himself, but he also lacked a crew and didn't want that wacky Empire thinking it still worked and was all ripe for swiping. That top floor was lethally rigged just because of that one time a recently mentioned thief snuck in with a kite. Nefarious Noble did have trouble with Ricard, hence why he immediately summoned forth Pandemonium. Bast was spared from that supernatural tornado because the Emperor wanted to build another dreadnought later just for kicks. One might have called it a Hellknot even. There are plenty of dragons guarding the Jade Passage because a certain super zombie wanted to use them for mocking everybody regarding that last dragoon's demise. Tiamat was summoned because there's a chance do-gooders from any universe might come through and her current boss gets greatly aroused when witnessing revenge fantasies achieve fulfillment. In some realities, the Emperor's good half also does lots of evil deeds because it really doesn't believe true peace can ever be achieved any other way than it ruling over everything. Endings are a pain, but all of you are fantastic. See ya.